0W-8 synthetic oil, 0W-20 engine oil viscosity, 2026 Toyota Camry maintenance, and the controversial debate over 5W-30 versus 0W-8 for summer driving engine protection are the primary forces driving the current automotive reliability conversation. But there is a brutal, research-backed truth about these ultra-thin lubricants that your dealership service advisor is absolutely desperate to keep from you until your warranty has officially expired. Why is it that the manufacturers who spent decades proving that 5W-30 was the gold standard for engine longevity are now mandating an oil with the consistency of room temperature water for the 2026 auto market? And is the promise of a 1% increase in fuel economy actually worth the risk of a total engine seizure during a record-breaking summer heat wave? If you have been looking at the oil cap on your new Toyota or Honda and felt a genuine sense of panic seeing that 0W-8 specification, your gearhead instinct is absolutely right to be skeptical, because there is a fundamental metallurgical reality involving film strength and boundary lubrication that no marketing department can ever truly override. By the time you finish this technical breakdown, you will understand the precise engineering trade-off being made between fleet-wide emissions compliance and your individual engine's lifespan. You will uncover the hidden reason why summer heat creates a viscosity shear event that 0W-8 oils simply cannot survive, and you need to stay tuned until the very end because I am going to reveal the one specific temperature threshold, a number buried in the SAE viscosity charts where the protective film of 0W-8 oil effectively vanishes and leaves your engine bearings to fend for themselves. This is the honest truth about why I officially regret using 0W-8 oil and why switching to 0W-20 or 5W-30 during the summer months is the only logical move for a long-term owner. If you want car content that treats you like an adult who actually understands physics and thermodynamics rather than just another target for a manufacturer's cost of ownership spreadsheet, take a second to hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and join a community that values mechanical truth over corporate branding. We are living in an era where the car industry is banking on your ignorance to meet their regulatory targets, and the only way to protect your wallet and your engine is to understand the engineering before the damage is done. To understand why the 0W-8 oil disaster is unfolding in 2026, we have to examine the concept of HTHS viscosity, or high temperature, high shear viscosity. In an engineering lab, the HTHS test measures an oil's ability to maintain a protective film under the intense pressure and heat of a running engine's bearings and piston rings. For decades, a safe HTHS number was considered to be 2.6 or higher, which is where 5W-30 and most 0W-20 oils reside. However, 0W-8 oil has an HTHS rating that can be as low as 1.7. From a veteran mechanic's perspective, this is a terrifyingly thin margin for error. When you're driving in the peak of summer, perhaps sitting in stop-and-go traffic with the asphalt at 60 degrees Celsius, your engine oil is absorbing a massive amount of parasitic heat. In a 2026 hybrid where the engine is constantly cycling on and off, the oil doesn't just stay hot, it experiences thermal shock every time it fires back up to merge onto a highway. Under these conditions, the thin film of 0W-8 can shear or break down, leading to direct metal-on-metal contact between the crankshaft and the bearings. I regret following the 0W-8 manual because while it might save me $20 a year in gasoline, it has removed the safety buffer that allows a Toyota or Honda engine to cross the 300,000-mile mark without a rebuild. The second ugly truth that no one is discussing on YouTube is the role of fuel dilution in the 0W-8 era. Modern direct injection engines, especially in the 2026 hybrid lineups, are notorious for allowing raw gasoline to leak past the piston rings and into the oil pan during cold starts. When you take a 5W-30 oil and dilute it with 5% raw gasoline, you end up with something that still has the protective qualities of a 5W-20. But when you take 0W-8, which is already at the bottom of the viscosity scale, and dilute it with raw fuel, you end up with a lubricant that has the film strength of a solvent. In the 2026 market, we are seeing high-mileage hybrids developing timing chain stretch and bearing galling precisely because the oil has been thinned out so much by fuel that it can no longer support the load of the moving parts. This is why I stopped recommending 0W-8 for anyone who lives in a region with 4 seasons. The oil is simply too fragile to handle the reality of a contaminated crankcase during a hot summer. Let's address the tight tolerances myth that dealerships use to justify these thin oils. You'll hear service advisors say that modern engines are built with micron-level tolerances and 5W-30 is too thick to flow into the small gaps. As a gearhead, I'm telling you that this is a fundamental misunderstanding of fluid dynamics. While tolerances are indeed tighter than they were in 1990, they are not so tight that a 0W-20 or 5W-30 cannot provide adequate flow. In fact, Toyota and Honda manuals in regions like the Middle East or Australia often still allow for 5W-30 or 10W-30 in the exact same engines we have here in North America. Why? Because those regions have real heat and the engineers know that in 45 degrees Celsius, fuel economy oil will lead to a wave of warranty claims. The brutal truth is that the 0W-8 mandate in the US and Europe is driven by CAFE standards and emissions credits, not by the specific mechanical needs of the metal. If the engine truly required 0W-8 to survive, it would require it globally. Yet the international manuals tell a very different story of viscosity flexibility. The controversy deepens when we talk about summer shear stability. Most 0W-8 oils rely heavily on viscosity index improvers, polymers that expand when hot to keep the oil from getting too thin. However, these polymers are susceptible to permanent shear, where the mechanical action of the engine literally chops the polymer molecules into smaller pieces. Over a 5,000-mile summer interval, a 0W-8 oil can lose a significant portion of its viscosity permanently. If you start with a 0W-8 and lose 15% of your viscosity through shearing, you're now running an oil that is functionally a 0W-4. This is why I regret my initial switch. The degradation rate of ultra-thin oil is much more aggressive than a robust 5W-30. By midsummer, your reliable Toyota or Honda is running on a fluid that offers almost no protection during a high-load event, like passing a truck on a mountain grade or towing a small trailer to the lake. There is also a psychological factor at play in the 2026 car market regarding maintenance ease. Manufacturers want the 2026 Toyota Camry hybrid to appear as low maintenance as possible, so they push for 10,000-mile oil changes on this thin oil. But as any veteran of the high-mileage world will tell you, low maintenance is usually a synonym for early replacement. When you combine 0W-8 oil, 10,000-mile intervals, and summer heat, you are effectively performing a slow-motion teardown of your engine's internal surfaces. The regret comes later, around the 100,000-mile mark, when the car starts to consume oil because the piston rings have lost their tension and the cylinder walls have become glazed from lack of proper lubrication. Dads who bought these cars to be the last vehicle they ever own are finding out that the modern engineering they were sold was actually a calculated sacrifice of their engine's longevity for the sake of a corporate emissions average. To be fair, 0W-8 oil is an incredible achievement in chemical engineering, and in the middle of a Canadian or Alaskan winter, its cold start flow is unrivaled. It gets oil to the top of the engine in a fraction of a second when the temperature is -30. But a car is a tool for all seasons, and what works in the Arctic can be a disaster in the Mojave. The honest truth is that for 90% of drivers in 2026, a seasonal oil strategy is the only way to genuinely reach 300,000 miles. Using 0W-8 or 0W-16 in the winter for those cold starts is fine, but as soon as the thermometer stays above 25 degrees Celsius, your engine needs the hydrodynamic wedge that only a thicker 0W-20 or 5W-30 can provide. This isn't being old-fashioned, it's respecting the laws of thermodynamics and the reality of metal-on-metal friction. I want to hear from you in the comments below. Have you made the switch to 0W-8 because the dealership told you it was mandatory? Or are you a rebel who is still running 5W-30 in your 2026 hybrid? Have you noticed any change in engine noise or fuel economy after switching viscosities? Let's get a real argument going, because the truth about engine longevity isn't found in a marketing brochure. It's found in the oil analysis reports and the real-world experiences of the people who actually plan to keep their cars out of the scrapyard. We need to hold these manufacturers accountable for the durability of the vehicles they sell us, and that starts with being honest about the lubricants we put in them. Now, as I promised at the beginning, I'm going to reveal the one specific temperature threshold that determines the fate of your engine on 0W-8 oil. That number is 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the standard operating temperature for a modern engine. In the SAE viscosity charts, the kinematic viscosity of 0W-8 at this temperature is approximately 4.1 to 6.1 centistokes. Compare that to 5W-30, which sits at 9.3 to 12.5. This means at normal operating temperature, not even extreme heat, 5W-30 is twice as thick as 0W-8. Once your oil temperature creeps past 105 degrees Celsius during a summer highway run, the viscosity curve of 0W-8 drops off so steeply that the fluid becomes non-Newtonian in its behavior, losing the ability to support the weight of the piston during the combustion stroke. This is the hidden expiration date of your engine bearings. It's the moment the oil stops being a lubricant and starts being a coolant that happens to be in the way. If you are serious about reaching high mileage and you want to arm yourself against the fleet sacrifice mentality of the 2026 auto market, knowledge is the only tool that works. Dealerships are banking on your ignorance of HTHS and shear stability to keep their service bays full of out-of-warranty engine replacements in 2032. Don't let them win. You worked too hard for your car to let it be killed by a marketing-driven oil specification. Arm yourself with the facts, see through the fuel economy fluff, and remember, in the 2026 market, the most reliable car is the one owned by someone who knows that metal doesn't care about emissions credits, it only cares about the oil film. If you appreciate this kind of veteran, fact-driven analysis that refuses to bow to corporate pressure, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications so you never miss a deep dive, and check out the video on your screen right now where we break down why Honda's move to small turbo engines might be their biggest mistake yet. This is GearHead Genius, and remember, every car has a story, but only the owners know the truth. See you in the next one.